Have you ever felt so much anger that it seemed your emotions were spiraling out of control? Has it happened that a single word or glance makes you think the whole world is against you? In our fast-paced era, where pressure is everywhere, it's easy to fall into the trap of irritation and rage. But how can we remain calm without letting anyone disturb our inner peace? It is possible to learn to live calmly and unshaken. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy with time-tested wisdom, offers us answers. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca faced difficult situations, yet thanks to Stoic principles, they managed to maintain inner harmony. Today, we will talk about 7 practical steps that will help you control your emotions and regain control over yourself. Remember, this is information you can put into practice. Don't get distracted or skip any part, because applying even one of these methods could instantly change your life. Let's begin. Accept the flow of life. One of the fundamental principles of Stoicism that leads us toward true inner peace is the sincere acceptance of everything that comes our way. However, this acceptance should not be interpreted as passive submission to circumstances or a simple agreement with them. Rather, it is the conscious willingness to face them with serenity, without resisting what life presents to us. It's not about resignation or a conformist attitude, but about a deep understanding that what happens to us is an integral part of the process we are living, something beyond our control, yet vital for our growth and development as individuals. This acceptance allows us to find a much deeper form of peace, for when we recognize that what happens is not something foreign or against us, but a part of the destiny that must be lived, we transform our relationship with circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, expressed in his meditations, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." These words, born from his own experiences, underline the idea that our inner peace does not depend on what happens to us, but on how we choose to relate to it. Instead of rejecting or resisting what life offers us, we should accept and embrace moments as they come, without fighting against reality. By doing so, we can break the cycles of anger, frustration, and resentment that are born from resisting the inevitable. Imagine the most everyday tasks, such as washing the dishes or performing a routine activity. If you face these moments with irritation or anger, each movement will feel like a burden that drags on endlessly. Time stretches, and what could be a simple task becomes an obstacle in your day. But if you decide to approach that task with gratitude, acknowledging that you are able to do it and be present in it, even the simplest jobs turn into opportunities for reflection and growth. It is then that peace does not come from the task itself, but from the way we choose to live it. Epictetus, another great Stoic, reminds us, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well." This teaching makes it clear that it is not about controlling everything that happens, but about accepting what presents itself and adapting to it with wisdom. This principle of acceptance does not mean we should be passive in life or accept everything without questioning it. It's not about being conformist or indifferent in the face of injustices or difficulties we may encounter. What Stoicism proposes is something much deeper, a radical change in the way we perceive and react to events. It is about learning to flow with changes, not constantly fighting against what we cannot control. By accepting life as it is, we free our minds from constant stress and regain control over our emotional state. By letting go of the need to control everything, we discover a great freedom, the freedom to be ourselves without having to battle every circumstance. The key here lies in having a clear and deep vision of what we truly want to achieve in life. Ask yourself, what is my goal? What kind of life do I truly want to build? Do not limit yourself to superficial goals like making money or attaining material achievements, as these are only temporary distractions. Stoicism invites us to look further, toward a broader and more transcendental vision that encompasses all aspects of our life. This vision gives meaning to everything we do, since each action, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to get closer to what we truly want to achieve. When you live with this clear and profound vision, you realize that every challenge, every difficulty, and every success contributes to your personal development, helping you evolve as a human being and grow emotionally. Everything, both the good and the bad, has a purpose in the grand scheme of life. By accepting this natural flow of life, we understand that everything is interconnected and that each situation is a lesson we must learn in order to move toward well-being and inner peace. Life is not about running from difficulties or avoiding them, but about facing them with serenity, learning to adapt to what comes without letting it steal our peace. In the end, what allows us to remain calm and in control is not our ability to control the outside world, but our attitude toward the events that come our way. When we embrace acceptance, we find the freedom to live fully, without being enslaved by our expectations or fears, and enjoy the present with full awareness and gratitude. Think about selfless help. Imagine you are forced to carry out a task under pressure. At first, it's easy to feel as if every minute is loaded with tension, as if the task were a mountain difficult to climb. Each step seems more exhausting than the last, and it's hard to find the motivation to keep going. But what if you chose to do that same task with your heart? What if, instead of seeing it as an obligation, you approached it with the genuine desire to contribute something valuable? If you carried it out with the intention of contributing authentically, even the most complicated and stressful tasks could transform into an unexpected source of satisfaction and personal growth. The real difference between feeling overwhelmed and feeling fulfilled does not lie in the task itself, but in how you choose to face it. When we approach an activity voluntarily, driven by a greater purpose or by the desire to serve others, that action becomes much more than a simple task. It turns into a way to enrich ourselves emotionally and personally. Actions carried out with genuine, selfless motivation, oriented toward the well-being of others, fill us with joy, give us a sense of purpose, and connect us to a deep sense of well-being. On the contrary, when we feel forced to do something as if we had no choice, that very same task becomes a heavy load that weighs on our shoulders. The key here lies in how we choose to perceive it, whether we see it as an opportunity to grow and contribute, or whether we take it only as a burden we wish to avoid at all costs. This principle applies not only to tasks at work or at home, but to every aspect of our daily lives. When someone says something offensive to you, or when you receive an unfair criticism, you always have two options. You can react immediately with anger, allowing that situation to disturb your inner peace, or you can use that moment to practice emotional control and readiness. True strength lies in our ability to handle these moments with serenity. You can tell yourself, this person acts according to their nature, but I choose not to allow this to disturb my peace. Accepting that some things are beyond our control frees us from unnecessary emotional burdens. Instead of fighting against what we cannot change, we can focus on what we truly can transform, our response to circumstances. For example, if you are criticized at work, you don't have to see it as a personal attack. Instead of letting that criticism affect you negatively, you can use it as an opportunity to reflect and improve. Understanding that other people's opinions do not define your worth or your well-being allows you to develop greater resilience. True peace comes from how we respond to situations, not from the situations themselves. Your reaction is the only thing that is under your control, and that is where your power to cultivate inner peace resides. The process of accepting that not everything that happens is in our hands is not something that can be achieved immediately. It is a practice that requires time, reflection, and above all, patience. As you get used to applying this approach, life's difficulties begin to be seen as lessons and opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable obstacles. Daily annoyances are handled with greater patience and understanding. This shift in mindset is what allows us to gradually reduce irritation and anger, and by doing so, we become capable of achieving an inner balance that helps us live in harmony with ourselves, without letting external tensions disrupt our emotional stability. True peace is not about everything in life being perfect, but about how we choose to maintain calm, serenity, and clarity, even when circumstances are unpredictable. Stop judging others. Have you ever stopped to think about why it is so easy to become irritated or angry with others? Perhaps the answer lies in the fact that too often we judge people impulsively, without reflecting enough. How many times in a single day, in the midst of daily rush and frustrations, do we find ourselves saying, "This person irritates me," or "They're not trustworthy at all"? Without realizing it, these quick judgments not only create a negative environment around us, but also deeply affect our inner peace, weighing on our soul like an invisible burden. Stoicism teaches us that to free ourselves from anger and frustration, we must learn to let go of judgments. Judging others often does nothing more than trap us in unnecessary emotional weight. This emotional burden only serves to cloud our mind, affecting our well-being and our ability to live in peace. Each of us interprets the world through our own expectations, beliefs, and past experiences. However, when we get caught up in complex situations and start labeling others without knowing the whole story, we are not only creating an obstacle to our peace, but also opening the door to irritation and inner conflict. People may act for many reasons that are not immediately evident, and by rushing to judge without knowing the complete facts, we allow our prejudices to dictate our response. Imagine, for example, a colleague who is always late to meetings. If you immediately see them as lazy or irresponsible, your frustration will only grow, and your day will be clouded by that judgment. But what if you discovered that this person is caring for a sick family member or is dealing with personal difficulties you knew nothing about? Your perspective would change completely. Instead of continuing to feel irritation, you would begin to better understand their circumstances, and your attitude toward them would soften. This is one of the keys of Stoicism. Understanding that letting go of judgment does not mean approving others' wrong actions or excusing harmful behavior, but freeing yourself from unnecessary emotions that only increase stress and discomfort within you. By letting go of these judgments, you make space for understanding and empathy, which in turn allows you to live with fewer inner tensions. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote in his Meditations, "You always have the option of having no opinion. Never let your soul be disturbed by things you cannot control." People are not completely good or bad. Their actions are often determined by their circumstances. This reflection invites us to look beyond the surface and recognize that all of us, including ourselves, act according to a set of complex factors. Reflect on your own mistakes. Perhaps you made a misstep in a moment of tiredness, stress, or simply because you were going through a difficult situation. In the same way, other people's actions rarely reflect their true character, but rather the circumstances surrounding them. Even the kindest people can err under pressure or when facing hardships that are not always visible to others. By understanding this perspective, letting go of judgment not only lightens our life, but also fosters the development of empathy. By not rushing to judge, we can see others with more compassion and understanding, giving ourselves the opportunity to build healthier, more harmonious, and ultimately more fulfilling relationships. The key lies in practicing this way of thinking in daily life, without rushing to issue opinions or make hasty assumptions. When we learn to let go of judgment, we allow our inner peace to expand, and we grow as human beings capable of seeing beyond others' imperfections, developing a deeper understanding of the circumstances that affect them. Let go of control. When we stop judging others, we discover a profound truth. Much of our frustration and anger comes from the expectation that the world or people should conform to our desires. We often feel disappointed or irritated when things don't go as we planned, or when people don't act according to our expectations. This constant desire for control consumes us, without realizing that reality rarely aligns with our preconceived ideas. People act based on their own circumstances, which, in many cases, we do not fully understand. This reflection leads us to a crucial question. Do we really need to try to control everything around us in order to find peace? Or does peace come when we humbly accept what is beyond our control? The essence of Stoicism lies in directing our energy toward what truly matters and learning to let go of what is unnecessary. It's not about giving up in the face of difficulties or falling into apathy, but about recognizing that although we cannot control every aspect of our lives, we can choose how we react to situations. Accepting the lack of control is a liberating act that allows us to transform our perception of life and focus our energy on what is within our reach. For example, a father may deeply care about his child's future, but he cannot decide for them what grades they should get or what career to pursue. Likewise, a worker may feel frustrated by their boss's decisions or by the direction of the company, but they do not have the power to change the thinking of upper management. These situations are valuable lessons. The emotions that arise when our expectations are not met only weigh us down when we insist that the world conform to our standards. By releasing these expectations, we transform frustration into clarity and inner peace. Stoicism invites us to ask ourselves deep questions in moments of difficulty in order to help us reflect and focus on what is truly within our control. Ask yourself, can I influence this? Will my reaction help improve the situation? Does it make sense to spend energy on something I cannot change? These simple but powerful questions allow us to shift our focus, directing our attention toward what we can control: our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Accepting the lack of control does not mean giving up or becoming passive. On the contrary, it is an act of strength and wisdom that allows us to focus on what is truly important. Imagine you are rowing a boat down a river. You cannot stop the current, but you can steer the boat to move with it. This metaphor perfectly reflects the Stoic attitude. We cannot always control what happens around us, but we can control how we choose to react to it. A practical exercise proposed by the Stoics is meditatio malorum, or premeditatio, a technique that consists of anticipating possible problems before the day begins. Imagine what could go wrong: cancelled plans, bad weather, unexpected setbacks. By preparing yourself mentally for these scenarios, it becomes easier to accept what comes and adapt when it happens. Letting go of control is not a sign of weakness, but of true inner strength. When you release what is beyond your power, you experience a sense of freedom and peace, and you can live more fully. Start little by little. Stop trying to change other people's opinions. Don't focus on the past, and don't cling to the inevitable. Life is like a river. If you learn to flow with the current instead of fighting against it, you will discover that the peace you have been seeking is waiting for you when you allow yourself to be part of the natural flow of life. Accept the imperfection of the world. In everyday life, we have all faced moments of frustration when others do not behave as we expect. These situations often fill us with irritation because we believe that the world and people should adjust to our expectations. However, have you ever stopped to think about why we expect people in the world to follow our own patterns and desires? The reality is that these expectations, in many cases, are what generate our suffering and frustration. Stoicism teaches us that the pursuit of perfection is, in fact, an illusion that fuels our negative emotions and distances us from inner peace. True liberation comes when we accept that imperfection is an inherent part of life itself. By becoming aware of this reality, we take the first step toward freeing ourselves from the anger and irritation we often feel in the face of the unexpected. Imagine you assign an important task to a colleague, trusting they will do it with dedication. However, when you receive their work back, it is full of errors, forcing you to redo much of it. Naturally, you may feel frustrated and disappointed, but instead of letting irritation take over, pause and ask yourself, should I really expect everyone to be flawless? People make mistakes, and this is completely normal and human. Epictetus, with his profound wisdom, reminds us that it's not the events themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about them. In other words, anger does not come directly from another's action, but from how we perceive and interpret it. The world and the people around us are not obligated to meet our expectations, but we can change our perception of events and free ourselves from unnecessary tensions. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, advised, "Begin each day by telling yourself, today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. All of this is due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." This advice should not be seen as pessimism, but as practical realism, an attitude that prepares us to face life's inevitable imperfections with calm and serenity. Thus, when a friend breaks a promise or someone speaks rudely, we can remind ourselves that this person is likely going through difficulties we do not know about. Instead of rushing to judge or taking things personally, try to understand their perspective. If a criticism seems unfair, ask yourself, does it really affect me, or is it my reaction that makes it hurtful? This allows us to maintain our inner peace without letting external imperfections disrupt our balance. Accepting imperfection is not about having a passive attitude toward life or surrendering to mediocrity. On the contrary, accepting imperfection gives us the freedom to focus on what truly matters, our ability to grow, improve, and live with integrity. For example, in personal relationships, it is common to expect our partner to fully understand our feelings and desires. However, the truth is that even the closest people cannot read our minds. Instead of feeling offended or frustrated, we can ask ourselves, can I explain my feelings more clearly? By accepting that people are not perfect, we can see their shortcomings as opportunities to cultivate patience, empathy, and compassion. If a colleague makes a mistake, instead of becoming angry, you have the opportunity to show understanding. If a friend fails to keep a promise, remember your own mistakes and how much you appreciate forgiveness. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, reminded us, the one who is brave is free. The courage to recognize the imperfection of the world frees us from anger and allows us to live with greater freedom. This freedom comes not only from letting go of control over others, but also from releasing the unrealistic expectations that limit us. Life does not have to be perfect to bring us joy. Marcus Aurelius expressed it wisely. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When we stop expecting perfection from others and from the world, we free ourselves from unnecessary emotional burdens that only take away our peace. Accepting imperfection is not an act of resignation, but an art of living that allows us to find peace within ourselves, regardless of external flaws. It is in this process of acceptance that we find true emotional freedom, which allows us to enjoy life as it is, with its ups and downs, its challenges, and above all, its opportunities to grow and learn. Take responsibility for your feelings. Once you learn to accept the imperfection of the world, you will be ready to take a fundamental step toward inner peace, taking responsibility for your own emotions. We live in a world full of surprises and unforeseen events which can make us feel out of control. However, the question we must ask ourselves is, should these external factors have so much power over our inner peace? Accepting what is beyond our control is only the first step. The deeper and more liberating step is learning to manage our emotions, even when circumstances are not in our favor. This requires honest reflection on who truly has control over what we feel. Am I the one who decides how I feel, or does the world around me have that power? Imagine, for example, that you are stuck in a traffic jam and suddenly someone abruptly cuts in front of your car. The immediate reaction may be outrage, perhaps even anger. It's easy to fall into the trap of letting frustration control you. But in that crucial moment, you can take a breath and ask yourself, is this situation really important enough to disturb my peace? The person who made that maneuver may have made a mistake or may simply be in a hurry, and their actions do not have to affect you directly. If you choose not to give in to anger, you are understanding that your inner peace is something that belongs exclusively to you, and no one else has the right to take it away. Similarly, when someone criticizes you or speaks rudely, it is completely natural to feel resentment or anger. However, in these moments, you can pause and ask yourself, why should I allow this to affect me? Epictetus, with his wisdom, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words teach us a fundamental truth. Although we cannot control the actions of others, we can always choose how to react to them. Even in situations of unfair criticism or when facing rude attitudes, we can maintain our calm if we are aware of the inner strength that resides within us. In those difficult moments, it is very useful to take some time before reacting. Step back, breathe deeply, and ask yourself these questions. Is it worth losing my peace over this situation? Will anger give me power, or on the contrary, will it weaken me? This brief pause gives you the space you need to choose serenity instead of falling into emotional chaos. Taking responsibility for our emotions is the key to achieving true inner freedom. No one can force you to become angry or frustrated if you do not allow it. If something external affects you, remember that the pain does not come from the situation itself, but from how you interpret it. Best of all, you can change that interpretation at any moment. These reflections remind us that our emotions belong to us, and only we have the power to choose how to respond to external circumstances. By protecting your inner peace, you will be creating a world within yourself where nothing can disturb your spirit. Try to see your life from this new perspective. What would change if you stopped allowing external circumstances to control your emotions? Start with small steps. Instead of being offended by a criticism, try to see it as an opportunity to learn something valuable. Instead of getting angry at a stranger, give them space to explain themselves. Remember that your inner world is your fortress. Protect it with determination, and you will see how life becomes simpler while inner peace becomes a constant companion. The art of not reacting. In our daily lives, unforeseen situations can easily unsettle us. Perhaps in a meeting, a stranger tries to cut in line without respecting your patience, or maybe someone makes a comment you find offensive. At first glance, these incidents may seem small, but in reality, they have the power to ruin an entire day, stirring irritation or anger within us. But how can we learn to remain calm and not let these moments control us? The answer lies in mastering the art of not reacting, an essential practice in Stoicism. Epictetus put it clearly, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This profound statement reminds us that emotions do not arise from other people's actions, but from how we interpret and perceive them. Every time someone does something that bothers us, we are the ones who decide how it will affect us. The control of our emotions does not depend on the events or people around us, but on our attitude toward them. Instead of giving in to the impulse to react immediately and impulsively, Stoicism invites us to be aware of our emotional response, to pause for a moment and think before acting. Seneca, for his part, offered very wise advice. The best remedy for anger is delay. This is one of the most powerful principles in our daily life. When something affects or hurts us, we should not give in to the urge to respond immediately. Take a deep breath, go for a walk, or simply postpone your response. Taking a moment to calm yourself before reacting not only prevents you from saying something you may later regret, but also gives you the space to think clearly. If you receive criticism, for example, do not respond right away. Allow yourself time to cool down and reflect, so that your reply is thoughtful, balanced, and not purely emotional. Sometimes silence is the best response. Silence not only preserves our inner peace, but also demonstrates an impressive strength of spirit. There is an old fable that says, "If a donkey kicks you and you kick it back, you are both donkeys." This story illustrates the destructive nature of unnecessary conflicts. Silence, on the other hand, highlights your ability to rise above the situation, showing that you are not dragged down by anger or aggression. Imagine a heated argument. If one party suddenly becomes silent, the conflict will quickly lose steam. The one who chooses silence demonstrates true self-mastery, acting with measure and control rather than being carried away by the heat of the moment. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you lost control of your emotions over something trivial? Was it really worth losing your peace in that moment? Most likely, upon reflection, you will realize that if you had stayed calm, you would have achieved greater mental clarity and inner peace. Self-analysis and constant reflection help us move forward in our personal growth and the development of our emotional resilience. When we learn not to react impulsively, we become stronger and more capable of facing life's adversities with serenity and equanimity. This approach, in which we choose our response and take the necessary time to calm our emotions, not only benefits ourselves, but also contributes to creating a more harmonious environment around us. By practicing the art of not reacting, we are cultivating a lasting peace. A peace that does not depend on external circumstances, but on our ability to maintain control over what truly matters: our mind and our emotions, the joy in forgiveness and giving. When we learn to remain calm and set aside impulsive reactions, our soul becomes profoundly lighter. What once caused us anger or resentment transforms into something fleeting, like small waves fading into the constant flow of life. By freeing ourselves from irritation and emotional conflict, we create a deep space within us for love, compassion, and selfless giving. In this process of transformation lies true joy, the awareness that forgiveness and kindness not only protect us internally, but also strengthen us, heal us, and allow us to live with greater clarity. Our mind clears and our heart expands, becoming more capable of embracing others without judgment. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wisely reminded us, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." These powerful words invite us to begin each day with a positive outlook, recognizing that life itself is a gift that allows us to live with an open heart. It is a reminder that each day is an opportunity to live with purpose, to help others, and to see life from a perspective that transcends our own interests and desires. Forgiveness, then, is not about justifying others' wrong actions, but about freeing ourselves from the emotional burden those actions may have caused and choosing not to allow them to control us. Anger, as the Stoics teach us, often arises from the expectation that the world and people should behave according to our preconceived ideas, aligning with what we want to happen. However, when we learn to recognize and accept the imperfection of others, that anger loses its power over us. Think of a time when you helped someone selflessly, without expecting anything in return. It is very likely you experienced a deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. That kindness and generosity, though not sought for reward, fill the soul with meaning and purpose, granting us the peace we so deeply desire. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This means that the true act of freedom comes from the ability to forgive and act selflessly, which allows us to regain control over our emotions. Forgiveness and generosity are not only acts of kindness toward others, but also liberating for ourselves, stripping away the emotional burdens of resentment, bitterness, and negativity. The spiritual freedom we find in forgiveness allows us to live without the heavy loads of grievance, paving the way for a lighter, more harmonious life. Various studies have shown that people who practice kindness and forgiveness have a greater sense of well-being and happiness. Stoicism understood this relationship between the virtues of forgiveness and generosity, and a more meaningful life centuries ago. These virtues not only serve as a moral refuge, but also form the solid foundation on which we can build a life full of peace and harmony. Ask yourself, can I understand the reasons behind this person's behavior? What motivations and circumstances might be influencing their actions? Forgiveness does not have to be complicated, and in many cases it can be as simple as being tolerant of someone's lack of attention or choosing silence in the face of injustice. Seneca, with his profound wisdom, wrote, "Find occasions for compassion everywhere as life leads you." This advice is an invitation to practice compassion not only toward others, but also toward ourselves. Forgiveness, then, is not only a liberating act toward others, but also a gift for our own well-being and growth. It allows us to heal, let go of suffering, and make way for lasting inner peace. Thus, forgiveness becomes a fundamental step toward a full, free, and peaceful life. It not only removes the emotional burden of grievance, but also strengthens us and prepares us to build a better future, both for ourselves and for those around us. The art of not reacting. Unforeseen situations that occur in everyday life have the power to take us out of our calm. Imagine you are in a meeting and a stranger tries to cut in line, ignoring your patience, or someone makes a comment you find offensive. Although at first glance these incidents may seem trivial, they can often ruin our day, provoking irritation or anger. The question that arises is, how can we maintain composure and not let these moments affect our well-being? The key lies in learning to master the art of not reacting. Epictetus wisely said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This thought reminds us that emotions do not arise from other people's actions, but from our personal interpretation of those actions. If we can change the way we perceive situations, we can prevent negative emotions from taking control of our mind and our inner peace. The power of our response is always in our hands, and the way we choose to react defines our peace. Seneca, for his part, noted that the best remedy for anger is delay, meaning taking time to reflect before acting impulsively. This technique of pausing is a powerful tool. When something affects you, instead of reacting automatically and emotionally, take a deep breath, go for a walk, or simply pause before responding. If you receive criticism or a negative comment, do not reply immediately. Give yourself the time you need to calm down, and when you speak, do so from a place of quiet reflection rather than overflowing emotion. Sometimes, silence is the best response, as it not only helps preserve your inner peace, but also demonstrates true mastery of your spirit, showing that you can control your impulses and not be dragged into provocation. There is an old fable that says, "If a donkey kicks you and you kick it back, you are both donkeys." This saying underlines the destructive nature of unnecessary conflicts. Choosing silence instead of engaging in a hostile exchange allows us to rise above the situation and maintain our serenity. Imagine a heated argument in which suddenly one party decides to remain silent. Instantly the conflict subsides, and both sides can take a deep breath, stepping away from the confrontation without feeding negativity. The one who chooses silence is demonstrating deep self-mastery and the ability to maintain inner peace, even when external circumstances try to destabilize us. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you lost control of your emotions over something insignificant? Was it really worth losing your peace over it? Reflecting on these moments, you will most likely recognize that, with a little space to calm down, you would have responded differently. The key is to take a step back before reacting, to allow time and reflection to prevail over immediate impulse. By taking this control over our reactions, we transform destabilizing situations into opportunities to grow emotionally and maintain our serenity in the face of adversity. The joy in forgiveness and giving. When we are able to remain calm and let go of those impulsive reactions that so often carry us away, we experience a profound change. Our soul becomes lighter. What once filled us with anger or resentment begins to dissipate, like small waves that no longer shake our inner self, but instead flow gently within the great river of life. In that regained tranquility, space opens for more noble emotions to emerge: love, compassion, genuine giving. This transformation is not only healing, it is also the root of authentic, deep, lasting joy. The joy of knowing that forgiveness and kindness not only protect our inner world, but make it stronger, wiser, and more resilient. In that state of calm, our mind clears and the heart seems to expand, becoming broader and more receptive toward the world. Marcus Aurelius left us a reflection that can guide each awakening. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. Each day is an opportunity to live with purpose, to open the heart without fear, to act with nobility, and to see in every action a contribution to the common good. Forgiveness does not mean approving harmful behavior, but freeing ourselves from the weight those actions have over us. It is an act of courage, deciding that nothing external should have power over our emotions. Anger often does not arise from what others do, but from how we want things to be. And it is precisely in that gap between reality and our expectations where pain takes root. But if we accept that people are not perfect, that everyone carries battles we do not see, anger dissolves. Think of a time when you did something good for someone without expecting anything in return. Do you remember that feeling? That genuine sense of well-being, that warmth in your chest, that is the true reward. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Forgiveness and selfless service are not weakness, they are strength. They are the most direct way to regain control over our emotions. They are the path to an inner freedom that no one can take from you. Modern science confirms something the Stoics already knew well. People who do good feel better about themselves. Forgiveness and kindness are not only individual virtues, but also foundations for a full, purposeful, and deeply harmonious existence. When faced with an offense or a negligent attitude, you can ask yourself, can I understand why this person acted this way? Is there something I am not seeing? Sometimes forgiving is simply choosing not to react, to remain silent, to understand that not everything requires a response. Instead of spending your energy trying to change what is uncontrollable, focus on how you can improve yourself. showing kindness, expressing gratitude, extending a helping hand. All of this connects you with something greater than yourself. Seneca put it clearly, find occasions for compassion everywhere as life leads you. Choose to forgive not only others but also yourself. Forgiveness is, yes, a liberation, but it is also an act of power, an affirmation that you choose how to live. And in doing so, you not only release the grievance, you make yourself stronger, more human, and more capable of building a better future for yourself and for those around you. These 10 principles are not just tools to overcome irritation or anger. They are a true guide toward inner freedom. They allow us to live with awareness and dignity without yielding to external circumstances. Stoicism invites us to take control of our emotions, to choose our peace over chaos, to create harmony within ourselves. If we allow these ideas to permeate our daily life, if we stop expecting perfection from the world and begin to build it within ourselves, we will be taking a giant step toward a fuller and more meaningful life. Let forgiveness, patience, and awareness become your fundamental pillars. Let joy and peace become your daily companions. Remember that each day is a new opportunity to choose strength over weakness, light over darkness. It doesn't matter where you begin. What matters is that you remain firm in your commitment. With every small step you take, your calm and inner peace will become the foundation on which you will build a more harmonious life. And now I want you, if this content has truly touched your heart, to leave a comment with a powerful phrase such as, "I am a Stoic person and I know my strength," or "My Stoicism has no limits." This is the way to show that you are committed to your growth and that just like the great Stoics, you too can transform your life. If this content has given you something of value, I invite you to subscribe and continue exploring more tools and insights that will help you live a life full of purpose and well-being. Each video is another step on this journey, and I don't want you to miss anything. You are closer to your best self than you think. Do you dare to keep moving forward and continue this journey? I'll be waiting for you tomorrow in the next video.